Hello and welcome to the Film Ireland podcast, where we celebrate filmmaking, storytelling and cinema across the island of Ireland. So whether you're a diehard film fan or simply curious about the screen industries, make sure to subscribe so you can catch up on past conversations with creatives like Kate Dolan and Lee Cronin. In today's episode, we're delighted to catch up with actor Anne McCrudden, who'll be featuring the next season of Harry Wilde and is the star of emotional drama Sunphlowers. So have a listen to the trailer here.
For the last years, your father was not the man you all loved and knew. He was cruel, hurtful. Don't make me look stupid, Eva.
Don't be silly, Mum. You look beautiful.
Express yourself, my budding Da Vinci's. Paint what nature means to you. To it!
They will come after your assets. The farm, our house.
Jesus Christ, Tony. Can you not leave me alone for 5 minutes? What do you want? I don't care what you believe. He was far from a perfect man.
Get the fuck away from that door! Get your hands off me! I told you!
And despite everything, I still loved him.
So thank you so much for chatting with us.
Delighted to be here, Gemma. Thank you so much.
You have a particularly interesting journey to what brought you to acting. I got to see you in Sunphlowers, and I think that has done just exceptionally well and really resonated with audiences. And I was wondering if you could share with us, your journey from recruitment to...
Yes, well, I retired from recruitment probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. And I was delighted for about 2 months, and then I got bored. So I started to do other things. And then COVID hit. And because we were all on lockdown, somebody in our local theatre group, a place where I've been a member since I was about 12 years of age, they decided to do an online course for screenwriting. And I'm very interested in writing as well. So I thought, oh, great, I'll sign up for this. So I did that with lots of other members. And following on from that, we did some screenwriting as a group. And then after COVID, we got together, and a local gentleman called Dave Byrne, who is a producer and writer, came up with the idea of producing a film called Somebody. So I auditioned for that and got a lovely part as the mum in that. And I thought that was chance in a lifetime over, and it was done. The experience had happened. And then that actually went to the Galway Film Festival. And following on from that, he said to me that he had this idea for a screenplay that he wanted to produce. And he'd love it if I would take the role of Catherine, the lead. So sure, I was completely flattered and thrilled. And when I heard the storyline, I just fell in love with Catherine, and I really wanted it badly. So that's how it happened. So it was a happy accident, really.
And in terms of your own experience, with amateur theatre before this, and, even growing up culturally with, I know your mum, had written sketches and projects, and, in the ether around you, there was always, creativity.
Always.
Yeah. Just talk a little bit about that, if you could.
Well, I've been born and reared in this lovely little village called Rush, and we were a very small community when I was growing up. The population was about 3,000, so everybody knew everybody. And one of the forms of entertainment was the theatre. And at that time, we didn't even own our own theatre. Now we have a beautiful 140-seater theatre, but in those days we didn't. And the group was formed 100 years ago next year, the Rush Dramatic Society. And my aunt was a beautiful actress. She was really amazing, my Aunt Vera. And she was involved from the time we were very young, and it was quite common to go home from school and do her lines with her. And my mum always wrote sketches, but she never put any value on her skill. As soon as the event was over, usually a variety concert or something like that, she just threw the script in the bin and that was the end of it. But they were very Maureen Potter style scripts. They were hilariously funny. And my sister Emer and I always featured in these scripts. So we had great fun. And the local audience would be in fits of laughter because she was very witty, but she didn't even realize her own skill at humor. And that's really, it was very normal for us to be on the stage, to be in the theatre. And it was there all our lives and it never left us.
And what was your experience then in terms of, like working on projects? Something short and funny is light, but I know you've worked on other productions that are, like that kind of weightier material. And talk to me about learning how to act and what that means to you in those spaces.
Yeah, it's a very good question, learning how to act. I don't believe I've ever learned how to act. I think it's just something inside you. It's this... I suppose it's a need or a want to step into somebody else's character, somebody else's life, and live that part. It's believing that you are that person when you're on stage or behind the camera. And I was very lucky to be given beautiful roles. John B. Keane would be one of my favourite playwrights. And I've played Big Maggie, I've played in Dancing at Lunasa, Playboy the Western World, gorgeous parts, the Beauty Queen of Lenan, really meaty, gorgeous parts where you have to completely immerse yourself.
And what's your process then when you take on a script or a character? Like, you familiarize yourself with the text? Do you learn the lines first? Are you delving into the psychology of them?
For me, I listen or read the play over and over and over again until the story resonates. And then I suppose you imagine what life was like in that time. We all have a multiple experience in life of being happy, being sad, having, wanting, needing, and all of those emotions come to the fore. And I suppose you just pull on your own life's experience. But once you know the story and you know the concept of what the playwright wanted to achieve, and after that, it's just getting into that person's shoes. And actually, that's an interesting thing, the shoes. When we were doing Sunflowers, one of the scenes, in several scenes, I had to wear boots. And I remember saying to the gorgeous girls and guys in wardrobe, oh no, I have mucky boots. I have boots from the garden. And they're like, absolutely not. Under no circumstances will you be able to wear anything of your own, because apparently, if you were to wear your own shoes or boots, you would walk like yourself. And the idea is that you're totally in this new person. And I just thought that was a very interesting little lesson for me to learn.
Great. So then in terms of inhabiting a character's space, of going on stage and being them and understanding what it's like to feel like them, was there ever anyone person that you were to embody that you maybe struggled with, or you had to find a different way into understanding them that would be sort of so far removed from your experience or understanding of the world?
Honestly, no. I've been very lucky with the characters that I've been asked to portray. And then I suppose if ever you have a difficulty, and I can't recall anything right now, but that's where your director, that's where you would lean on your director. And in Sunflowers, I found Dave amazing. We had these little whispered conversations between takes where he's explaining to me, what he wants to achieve, what he'd like to see the character do. So they're little prompts and they keep you in that place. And likewise in the theatre, I've worked a lot with Sean Corcoran. He's a really gorgeous director. And I would trust the director beyond doubt. So if they say to me, when you're delivering that line, stand on one leg, that's exactly what I will do. So I probably lean on the director for guidance.
And in terms then of, the script for Sunflowers came to you, what was your process then for, delving into that story? Is it in flux? Is it developing as you're seeing the text? Have you, did you see it evolve, or did you come when it was totally finalized?
I had a really clear picture of Catherine before we started filming, because Dave and I spent a lot of time together. And he even was generous enough to allow me to have a little bit of input, because I'm from a rural background. There's a lot of Catherine's life story that I can resonate with. So there were times when I felt comfortable to say, no, I don't think she'd say that, or could she not do this? So there were times when we collaborated a little bit on that. So before I started to learn the lines, I felt I knew Catherine wholeheartedly. And then what I did was I decided to close off any activities, hobbies, social life. I just locked myself away for a few months and immersed myself in the script until I felt that the words were mine and I felt comfortable enough so that when the camera rolled, I wasn't thinking about lines. I was reacting to the circumstance.
Going on set, the act of filming, did anything change in rehearsals in terms of, like meeting your co-stars, and maybe you had if you're that familiar with the text, you might have had a strong picture, and, like then when it comes into reality, things might have changed a little bit. What's your process for dealing with that, and what was that like?
That's, yeah, you're quite right. It is interesting when you're sitting across from somebody, because there isn't a lot of time for rehearsal. And sometimes even the tempo of the take would be different to what I had in my head. And it's a fascinating process when you're sitting there and there's silence, there's total silence. You would hear a pin drop, and then whoever has the first line, it just takes on a life of its own. And Patrick Bergin was an absolute pleasure. It was a privilege to be involved with Patrick Bergin and to sit across from him and interact. And I was very grateful for that. But he shines when the camera rolls, he shines. He's just amazing. And I just reveled in the opportunity. And with the children, the children in the film that were my sons and daughter, Dave did a very nice thing. On the first day, he told us all to go off together, well, individually, and have a chat with each other privately and share a secret. So I went off with each of the actors and we all shared something personal. So it instantly, you felt that you had this little bond. And I suppose because of my age too, I did feel like a mother figure. I didn't feel I had to pretend. And there was a genuine affection back. So it felt very easy. I didn't feel like I was pretending. We minded each other on set. There was a lovely closeness. So I didn't feel that it was an effort. It came very naturally.
And in terms of, again, sort of moments of finding truth on screen, were there any difficulties? Were there any kind of changes? Because, and again, how does that compare with the world of theatre that's very, very present, when you're going over things again and again?
Yeah, you're right. And that's a really interesting question to talk about, a process to talk about. When you're on stage, if you make a mistake, or if you didn't do it as well tonight as you did last night, or sometimes you feel that you really got into that emotion. And if you don't, well, nobody knows except you, and the audience will just accept what you've done, and it's over. Nobody can touch it, feel it, look at it. But when it's film, it's there forever. So that is a different kind of pressure. And there is a scene in Sunflowers, it's what is referred to by Dave as the breakdown scene, where Catherine gets really emotional. She has an argument with her children at the table. They're having a meal. She gets upset and she storms out and goes out to the field. And for the first time, we see her really giving in to her struggle, to what has happened. And that was a difficult scene. I won't say I was dreading it, but I knew it wasn't going to be easy. And everybody was so amazing. Everyone stood back. There was a lovely respect and quietness, because you have to dig somewhere deep to find that emotion, and you have to find it when the camera rolls. And Graham Seeley, he's the cameraman, he's a gorgeous person. He was really patient, and I knew there was no hurry, there was no pressure. When the emotion came, it came. There was nobody saying, hurry up. There was nobody saying, come on, we have to get this done before it gets dark. So there was all of that help around me. But yet that scene did take a lot of thought and a lot of time out.
It's sort of a very different medium. It's a very different even form of acting. Did it take a bit of readjusting? Was that what you were doing in that development stage when you locked yourself away with that script to kind of like be there with the material? Or what was that phase as well? Because if you're longer form projects that you would have worked in depth with on your character, one of the things about those is that they're in sequence. So you're going through the emotional arcs as they happen, as opposed to, like in a film, you might shoot the end, the aftermath, and it's a very different mental state. I'm just wondering, what was your toolkit then for managing that?
Well, I think apart from shock, the toolkit was a very steep learning curve, because on the first day I went off to the set, happy, singing, delighted with myself. And I had, the first scene in my head. I felt really sharp. I felt I was on point. And of course, we didn't do the first scene. I had got into my own little world, and suddenly I was thrown into a scene where I had to be upset and sort of post-vomiting from the shock. So that was a shock. So I think after that, I knew I'd be fine, because that threw me a curveball and it woke me up, and I realized, my goodness, I have to be really on the ball here for any event. Even though I had been given my dailies the night before, it's amazing how you lull yourself into this, back to what you would do on stage. So you're right, there is a hugely different process involved, and you have to just get yourself into the moment every day, and maybe 3 or 4 times a day, into different moments that aren't sequential.
And as you're coming sort of to the end of filming, and like there's elements to theatre, like theatre is a very physical beast.
Yeah.
You're there, for like an hour, 2 hours, very much so in the moment, but then it's finished. But like with film, you can be there for a long, long day, especially if you are the central character. And again, even in terms of like, it's sort of a marathon rather than a very intense sprint. Did you find that even took a little bit of getting used to?
For sure. But I learned during that time to surrender to the experts around me: wardrobe, makeup, hair. In the beginning, I thought I was going to be fixing myself, and then I have to wear this jumper in this scene and those shoes. There was absolutely no need for me. I was given the luxury of being told, this is what you're putting on now. And as soon as that scene was over, there was somebody there to take that off me, to put the next scene's wardrobe on. So there were other people there who were brilliant at their job. So all I had to do was to surrender to their expertise. So I did learn how to do that, and I gave into that. And yeah, that was tiring. There were days when you felt like you were like a spinning top. directed over here, then back, then out again, then back in your trailer, then back out onto set. But I loved it. I loved every minute of it. The days were long and they were very cold. And a couple of nights when I came home and I got into bed, I actually couldn't get the heat back into me. So on 2 different occasions, I had to get up in the middle of the night and sit into a hot bath just to stop shaking. I was that cold. And I was terrified that I was going to get a cold and then delay everything. So that was my biggest fear, but that didn't happen. Sure, we were minded. There was hot water bottles put at my back and dry robes around my shoulders. I was well-minded.
And then, you're coming off the shoot. Do you know what you had then? Like, did you see any of the footage? Like, when was the first time that you started to...
I never looked.
No,
I never looked. And loads of times somebody said, come on, have a look. It's lovely. You're going to like it. I thought, no, I didn't want to see it in case it made me self-conscious. I thought, if I don't like how I look, if I don't like how it appears on camera, it might change me tomorrow. I was trying to lose myself and just be Catherine. And I thought, as long as I'm looking at me performing Catherine, I'm not going to feel like Catherine. So I decided that the dailies were not my business. So I didn't look at them. And I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah. And you're very glamorous. Like, you look totally different in real life. Catherine is kind of like more of the earth.
That was what was gorgeous, that I could be this whole new person. And the clothes, I mean, they'll tell you, like, every day I'd say, oh no, what am I wearing today? But sometimes I felt like the Michelin Man, because there was layers of jumpers and tops and then another layer. But it was great. It was great because it wasn't me.
The final day when rap was called, what was that feeling? Was it elation? Was it exhaustion? Was it relief?
No, none of that. It was sad because I thoroughly enjoyed every day. It was just something I wanted to have more of. And when it's over, you become, and now it sounds cliched to say you become like a family. You're not a family, but you become very close to these people and you live it. So from the moment you wake up until the moment you wake up the next day, you're living it, you're breathing it, eating it, thinking it, sleeping it. It doesn't stop until it's over. And then there's this huge void and you feel this awful emptiness. It's the strangest feeling. It's like, no, it's over. What am I going to do now? And to be honest, I sort of forgot. Because I haven't done it very often, I've only done it in Somebody and Sunflowers. You think when it's over, that it's over. And we often say here in the house, my daughter especially, Sunflowers is the gift that keeps on giving, because it's not over, because then it came out for Galway, and then it came out for cinema, and then now it's on Amazon, and now it's going to be on RTE. So it just keeps giving. So it's not over.
So even going back to the first time you watched it then in the Lighthouse was that the cast and crew with friends and family? Yeah. What was that feeling? I presume at that stage it's probably something different to what you expected in your mind, especially if you're so familiar with the text.
Yeah, well, I did see it just before then. The director and the chairperson of the Millbank Theatre and myself sat and watched it in its raw stage. They still had to add music and polish some of the color and the sound. So we did see it then. And I got a shock because I didn't realize that I was so close to the camera. And the story looked different. It was very emotional, really emotional. And then when we saw it in the Lighthouse and the music was there and there was a silence there and all my family were there, that was, well, of course, tears came, but it was happy. It was, I can't even find the words to describe the sense of joy. It's something, for me, I felt it was, I was part of creating something beautiful and something that would be there forever. And I'm very passionate about where I live. And I really feel like Sunflowers captured a part of this area and the livelihood of so many of my friends and neighbours. And I feel it's a little bit of history and heritage captured. And I believe that in 50 years' time, people will look back and say, oh my God, look at the tomatoes. And yeah, they had fields of cabbage there, because already a lot of the fields have been taken over by housing. The village has changed. We now have a population of almost 11,000. So you can imagine the difference that I can see now compared to when I was growing up here. So I feel that Sunflowers is a very important part of Rush, and of course of the Millbank Theatre, and personally for me too, but more so for our village.
And I think it feels very true for, you know, like an entire generation of women. This is, you know, a coming of age film in so many ways, where, you know, Catherine learns to sort of re-navigate life with this new set of understanding and rules, and it's a really, really big moment, but it feels lovely and authentic and true to viewers in terms of, this is a story. We don't always see this type of story, you know, like it isn't this young action film, or like these very, it is sort of this quietly powerful, truthful story, but it seems to really have connected with audiences. Tell me then about what it was like maybe watching it with audiences, and when you started to get that feedback from people who've been moved by it in person.
Phenomenal, honestly, phenomenal. The amount of women and men that have come up to me upset, really genuinely moved, and saying things like, oh, that was my mother's story. I had an aunt like that. Or that was my story. I had a man who came up to me, and I thought it was so honest of him. He said he was that husband. And he said, I never saw the damage I did from another perspective. Now, I thought that was incredible, that he was so honest and felt so brave to admit that. Now he's back with his wife. He said, I don't know him. He just came up one day in the cinema. I think it was in Swords. I went to see it in Swords. I went to see it in Balbriggan because I had different groups of friends. So we went in different groups.
And all the festivals, presumably, as well.
All the festivals. Gosh, Galway was such a high.
It was lovely. We had the flowers in the audience. They were
one of the highlights of my life, Galway. There was just an electric happiness that day, that night. And to see everybody there was just amazing. But back to your original question there. Yeah, I think it doesn't have to be a woman that the story resonates with. I think it's a family story. It particularly highlights Catherine, but it also touches on men, children, a community.
Grief.
We all, yes. And I think
the complexities of when it's not that straightforward.
Yeah, and her struggle to do the right thing, and at the same time, the hurt must have been enormous. And she put on that face for her children until she couldn't stick it anymore. And eventually she told them, and then her regret at telling them, she was breaking their lives. And they came through in the end. And I love the fact that it wasn't a happy ever after story. Everybody imagined, and lots of people said to me, oh, I thought yourself and Patrick were going to get together. I love the fact that it showed that lovely friendship between a man and a woman that didn't have to go any further than just that friendship. And I think that was a lovely way to describe their relationship.
Watching it with audiences and your friends, it's probably a very different experience from theatre, that it's a direct, almost like a conversation, communication. You're in the moment. But now when you're sharing it with an audience, you're watching them watch you. Is that a strange experience? Do you experience it differently every time?
Yes, honestly, I do. And I see something different every time because you're more relaxed, I suppose, each time. And depending on who you're sitting with, I feel relaxed, or I'm hoping they're going to like it. But in general, I assume they will like it. But yes, each time is different. And each time you see something and you catch a different nuance, which is lovely. And it gives me time to see my fellow actors in a different light.
Now it has been going to a broader audience. I presume, like at the time of listening, it will be up on RTE, so we can maybe touch back in by email and see what your, like that is then the biggest audience. Like you're seeing it in a space with up to 100 people, maybe 100 plus people. Like that's a very powerful experience. But then it going into the homes of all of the country and them having the potential, but like it will be viewed by so much more eyes. Is that something you're looking forward to? Is that something you're sort of used to now at this point?
I don't think I'm used to it. No, I don't know if I even know what that means. I went to the dentist last week, and while I was waiting to be called into the dentist's surgery, this lady was paying her bill, and she turned around and she looked at me, and I smiled, and she looked back and she did another look. And then as she was leaving, she said, "I loved Sunflowers." She said, "It was gorgeous." And I thought, oh my God, because that was a bit of a surprise, because in general, most of the people that have seen it are people I know. And so it is unusual for someone who I don't know to come up. So that was a lovely feeling. So about it going on national television, my biggest emotion is pride. I'm so proud of the film. I'm so proud of Rush Millbank Theatre. I'm so proud that this group of people got together with this vision and delivered it. And we have something banked in the treasury forever. That's my overriding feeling.
Creatively, for you, what has happened in that time as a performer? Have you picked up, I would say, the pen, the typewriter, really, in terms of telling different stories and writing stories? Have you, what has been on the cards, or what is on the cards?
Well, I'm very lucky. A lovely agent in London has signed me up, and she has sent me for lots of work since then. I have something coming up. I have a film coming up in July, and I was lucky to do. I had a lovely little role in Jane Seymour's TV series Harry Wilde, and I have something, as I said, for summer. And I've other things in the pipeline. And this year, I've decided is going to be the year when I publish a collection of poems. I've been writing since I was probably 20, and I have boxes and boxes of poems written. So I'm now polishing them, and I'd love this year, by the end of this year, please God, I'll be 70 in August, and I'd love this, my 70th year, to be the year that I publish my poems. My poetry collection title is Paper Headstones. And it's my way of acknowledging all the lovely people that I've met in my life, many of whom are past. So it's a very emotional collection. And each poem is about somebody. It's the guy in the village who rang the church bell. It's the woman down the road who had a farm. It's my mother, my father. It's a very pastoral collection. I am very, very excited by it. Again, it's about history. It's about, I have this this desire to keep people alive, to not to let their memory go. People who have been hugely important in not just my life, but in the life of a village. And I always feel really sad when they're gone and not necessarily forgotten, but there's nothing tangible. So I'm hoping that my collection will identify these people and just keep them, like Sunflowers, will keep our lovely town and its heritage alive. I'm hoping this will do the same. And now it's a big hope and it's a big assumption that my work will be good enough to do that. But I have to believe in it. So I have to see it through.
Oh, I can't wait to read them. And tell me then as well, and because I do always think it's the same with all forms of creativity. There's a little bit of magic in it. There's a little bit of like the soul goes into it. And, that remembering that, capturing people, their truthfulness of that is the thing that brings the weight and the communication of it.
It's authentic. And I think I'm not trying to be flowery. I'm not trying to be poetic. I'm just trying to authentically remember people with an unbiased account. And I hope I do that. I really, really hope I do a good job on that.
Beautiful. Tell me about that role then that's on that you're going to be shooting in July. Like, are they sort of similar characters that you're being offered, or is it something very different?
I'm a psychiatrist.
Ooh.
Which is great. And I said, I hope I get a jumper with no holes in it.
They have a lot of money. They'd be grand. Needing them.
It's lovely to do something different. And I love, if I'm asked to do something, whether it's stage or camera, whatever it is, that's a mile away from me. I want to lose me. That sometimes the hardest parts are the parts where you're just this person that might wear the same suit that you would wear and the same appearance. They're always hardest because you look like you, so it's hard to lose you. So when visually I'm very different, I find that much easier to escape.
So do you feel, like in terms of posture, in terms of like breathing, do you again feel different as you go into each role? And what would that?
Yeah, completely different. I found with Catherine, my whole physique changed. I found myself round-shouldered and rounded. I didn't feel like for me, I try very hard, don't always achieve it, but I'd be careful about my posture or, whatever. It's a different feeling entirely when you're portraying a character because you physically take on what you believe their feeling is. And I remember when I played Big Maggie, for a long time after Big Maggie, my husband would say, now, no Big Maggie's here. Because Big Maggie was such a tyrant, But I found even at home, I would slip into the Big Maggie gestures or the accent would come out. So it does go in a bit.
And how long does it take you to shirk? How long did it take you to kind of get rid of Catherine? Is she still in there a tiny bit?
She was there for a good while.
Because when you're in her for so long as well, like it's the guts of that entire day.
No, she's there. Yeah. Yeah, I still feel, I feel that a part of me is Catherine. Yeah, it's definitely, it stays in there. And not so with, actually, even with Big Maggie, all those characters, a little part of them stays inside you. And I think every now and again, you kind of pull it out and have a look at it and put it back in again. I think it does stay in there. Yeah.
What would be a character that you haven't played that you'd really enjoy embodying or see the challenge in?
Oh, I'd love to do something like Game of Thrones, those kind of big, where you'd be evil to the point of everybody, talking about that character being horrible, or so benevolent that she would rescue the whole world or the whole, I think extremes.
Fun. Yeah, I definitely see that. That's in your future. Let's manifest that. That would be
I like
fascinating.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Both evil twins, like one
Yeah.
benevolent and one malevolent
Yes.
leader. Yeah.
Yeah. I could live with that. Yeah. It's to have something gritty and really extreme. That's the excitement. But
And
it's just every day.
working on different sets then, working with different directors, like are you learning a lot there now as time has gone on?
Yeah, well, when I was on Harry Wilde, and I have to be honest, I don't have that much experience. So it's not like I can say every time I go on set, it's not like I have this wealth of experience.
But it's a very intimate
Oh, yes.
relationship with the
This,
director, and like in what you're trying to do. It's very hard and robust, and very you have to be very vulnerable as well as an actor. So it's more like those relationships are obviously going to be different every time because it's
every time. And trust. It's for them to trust you and for you to trust them. It's not said, but it's almost like a sense that when you go on set, you feel this is going to be okay. And they're looking at you and they want you to be great. And you're looking back at them, hoping you're delivering what it is they're looking for, And after a couple of runs, you think, I know I have it. And they know I have it. And then we're grand. But when you go on set, it's in general, there's such a welcome. You're made feel that you're a really important part of this procedure.
You are a really important part of the procedure. If you're not allowed to do your job well, the whole thing tanks.
Well, you know what? No, I did learn this. I was fascinated. And even though I had done somebody previously, I left Sunflowers with the greatest regard for the other people on the set. The guy doing the sound boom, he was there constantly. Patrick was his name, and Peter did sound. Their hands were trembling from the tension of keeping that boom near enough to me and far enough away out of sight. They never made a sound. They couldn't squeak their shoes. They couldn't cough. They couldn't blink. They were the team around you that made you better than what you are, because they're there to make, they're fixing your wardrobe, your hair, your makeup, so that all you have to do is do your part. All of the rest is taken care of. And then when it's all finished, the sun shines on me. The sun really should shine on the team, because you couldn't do anything without their expertise. So I was fascinated by that, the detail, the first AD who invites you onto the set, the manners and the respect. Anne is coming. Catherine, they never called me Anne. Catherine is coming. Can we make way for Catherine? Make sure she doesn't get in the cable. Can someone hold Catherine's blanket? Can someone? It's an amazing world, and tradition in that world seems to be paramount. Everyone has a place. Everybody knows their place. Nobody steps over anyone else's line. No one gets in anyone else's way. It's a lovely, safe, comfortable environment to work in.
And long may continue.
Yeah, I did learn a lot from that. And when I went on the set of Harry Wilde, I felt I brought that experience with me. I knew things that I hadn't known before. So that helped hugely.
And could you have imagined this is where you would be 7 years ago?
Never. Honestly, it was my secret dream as a child. I used to say as a child, I only ever wanted to be an actress or an artist, ever. And as I grew older, I stopped saying I wanted to be an actress, because I thought people were like, "You want to be an actress," So I stopped saying that because it sounded too ridiculous to be possible. So I parked that, but I kept up the amateur stuff. And I do paint. I still paint. But I'm not a brilliant artist, but I'm not bad. I paint, and people, a lot of my family have paintings on the walls. I anything to do with creativity is where I am.
And again, long may it continue, and we cannot wait to see your episode. We cannot wait to see this, to see you as a psychiatrist. And thank you so much for chatting with us.
For your lovely questions.
And thank you so much for listening. So make sure to subscribe to Film Ireland wherever you get your podcasts.